والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا. إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا. إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقيم له من أمرنا يسرا.
ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا كذلك فقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما.
قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما. آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا. قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكا وكان وعد ربي حقا. من البداية فيسألونك عن القرنين.
ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا. إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا
فيعذبه عذابا نكرا وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا ثم أتبع سببا ثم أتبع سببا
في همس بالتاء أتبع
ثم أتبع سببا
همس without قلقلة
التاء
ما في قلقلة ثم أتبع
أنا كنت بقلقل الباء يعني
تعمل قلقلة في التاء
ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما.
آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قالوا أنفخوا حتى إذا قال أنفخوا
You say قال أنفخوا. It's not قال أنفخوا, it's قال أنفخوا. Think of it this way. لنفخوا.
قال لنفخوا.
That's good. Well done. You did it.
قال لنفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال أتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا. أفرغ عليه قطرا فما استطاعوا أن يظهروا وما استطاعوا له نقبا قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعده ربي جعله دكا وكان وعد ربي حقا
والبني محمد ما شاء الله وجبت
ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا.
Come on, last time it was very good by the way. I'm sure you can do it today. At least one verse or two verses.
ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس.
مطلع
الشمس.
Yes.
وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا ثم
أتبع
سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا.
Well done يا ريان ما شاء الله. Very good.
قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكا وكان وعد ربي حقا.
الله يطالك يا جماعة. Very well done. Your sister's side.
Go to the start order?
Yes. ذكرى. ثم نكرة. Sorry?
I don't know why I have this habit of
No, this is not this. I don't think this was qalqala. You probably pronounced adamma instead, which is in worse reading. That's what he would say, adaban nukura. So it's not a mistake as such, but according to Hafs reading, it's nukra. So with a sukun on it, with a sukun on the kaf. But I don't think it's a habit. Your recitation is very good, mashallah. أمرنا MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Who else?
ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ
مطلع
الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل له لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا.
Very good, MashaAllah. Other reciters?
No, not okay.
Yeah.
قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما.
One more time.
قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكا وكان وعد ربي حقا.
Very good. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is the last story in Surah Al-Kahf. We covered 3 stories so far. The story of the people of the cave, the story in which the surah began, and then the story of Sahib al-Jannatayn, the man with the 2 gardens. The third one, the story of Moses and Al-Khadir, and this is the 4th one. This one is really interesting. As we said before, there is a link between those 4 stories. We've had a lengthy discussion on that, and we'll have another discussion today, inshallah, by way of linking the stories together. The first verse we have today is وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. They ask you about ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. We've said before that many of the questions we have in Surah Al-Kahf were posed by the people of Mecca by way of challenging the Prophet ﷺ, thinking that he would have no knowledge of who those people are. Again with the people of the cave, and when they asked him about the nature of the soul, assuming, according to the dominant interpretation, and they asked him about Dhul Qarnayn, who this man is. As normal, we've learned from the story of the people of the cave, that the Quran wants us to be busy with the right questions. When it discussed the people of the cave, it literally said, don't busy yourselves with the nonsensical stuff. It didn't mention their name. It did not mention the place where they lived. It did not mention how many years they remain in the cave. Nothing of this nature. What the Quran focuses on is the stuff that will be useful to us as listeners. Right? Because we can easily miss the point. Stories by nature are very interesting. They really attract us. And one of the delusions that the shaitan does to us, the Quran, the shaitan does every single thing by way of distracting us from the message of the Quran. And as I said before, the shaitan would aim to draw a barrier between you and the Quran so that you don't even read the Quran. If you pick a mushaf and start to read, he doesn't lose hope. He comes and tries to distract you from understanding the Quran, from trying to get the meanings and the essence of things. When you try to focus, he doesn't lose hope. He tries to intervene and he does to make sure that this focus does not remain for good. So he does whatever it takes so that you don't get to have the essence of this. One of the delusions that he makes is simply keeping people busy with their own stuff. People in the past have had lengthy discussions on the number of the people of the cave, the place where they lived, where the cave is, and all the rest of it. The same thing with Dhul Qarnayn. They asked about his own, as the question said, they are asking about him. Apparently they are asking personal details. That would be of no use to us. That would be of no use to them. How does the Quran respond? The Quran says, سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُم مِّنْهُ ذِكْرًا. I'm not going to busy you with the stuff that are not really important. What I'm going to tell you, سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُم مِّنْهُ ذِكْرًا, I will tell you stuff that will act as reminders to you. سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُم مِّنْهُ ذِكْرًا. Dhikr is something that acts as a reminder. So I won't keep you busy with where he lived, the places that he visited, what is the east, what is the west, the place where the sun rises, the place where the sun sets. No details. The most basic stuff. And the Quran literally is saying, take what is beneficial to you. And this is it. What is the point of it? Dhikra, that you get to have a reminder. They were expecting the Quran to do what? People build stories, as in narratives and myths, how massive this guy was, and the wealth that he had, the power that he had. The Quran does not really focus on that. It says, سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُم مِّنْهُ ذِكْرًا. What I'm going to tell you is the stuff that will be of reminders to you. Dhikra. Dhikr is وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Give reminders to the believers, because if they are really believers, they will benefit from those reminders. So again, the Quran is teaching us this lesson again with Dhul Qarnayn, even though we've had the same lesson with the people of the cave, but this is to literally instill this idea in our minds. Be busy with the right stuff, because you can literally, the Quran can make you, the shaitan can make you busy with, you think that I'm being busy with the Quran, I'm discussing the people of the cave, I'm discussing the Quran. What do you really discuss about? What do you discuss about the people of the cave? That's really what matters. How much use can you draw from those stories? سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُم مِّنْهُ ذِكْرًا. I will tell you the stuff that are important, that will act as reminders to you in the first place. So that's the first thing that the story has to teach us. And when the Quran starts to tell us about this, of course, the vast majority of Quran commentators would say that this Dhul Qarnayn was Alexander the Great. That's the vast majority of people believe in that, or scholars. But again, the Quran is silent on that. But this is the most dominant interpretation. We know of no historical figure that has done this apart from him. It could be someone else. But again, if we have, according to our recorded history, Alexander the Great was the man who literally did that. إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Indeed, we have empowered him on earth, in the land. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. And we've given him, out of everything, a sabab. There's something I want to explain here. Can I have this? Yeah. Thank you so much. So we have a word, sabab. Sabab literally means in Arab, when you think we have in Arabic language, we have dictionaries, right? That when you come to know what a word means in Arabic, the first thing that you get is what we call the linguistic meaning, or what the word means literally. And then you have something called the conventional meaning. Conventional meaning. And then you have the technical meaning. The linguistic, the literal, a bit of translation, is the literal. The word sabab, Arabic-wise, literally means rope. What is rope in Arabic? Another, a more known word is habl. You know what habl is? So habl is rope in English. Back then, the word sabab would literally mean, the most common usage of it is sabab. We have a phenomena in Arabic that is called naql. Naql literally means transmission or shifting. I think transmission would be a better one. Transmission. When a word is translated from its literal meaning to a more conventional meaning, the conventional meaning literally means how the people use a specific word. Think of, I think we said before, in the Hanafi madhab, in the Hanafi school, they would identify fish as a type of meat. Apologies. In the Hanafi, there is a discussion amongst Muslim, amongst the fuqaha, regarding the question of someone took an oath not to eat lahm, not to eat meat, but this person happened to have eaten fish. Does this break his oath or not? He has taken an oath not to eat meat, but he ate or she ate fish. Does this break the oath? In the Hanafi school, they basically rely on this. They draw on this. They said it actually depends on the place where he lives. If you live in a place that thinks of fish as a type of meat, that breaks the oath. If you live in a place that does not identify fish as a type of meat, then it doesn't break the oath. Conventional, because it's how people, the convention, how people basically use the word, or the customary usage of the word. And then you have something that is technical. That is primarily to do with scholarship. How scholars of a specific field use a specific term. Think of any technical term that is also common amongst people. Think of, I don't know, capitalism, for example. Economists would use it in a specific sense. Maybe it can use, that's not the best example. Tajweed. That's a good example. That's good. Thank you. Tajweed, the word tajweed. Tajweed, amongst the scholarly community, means the discipline of tajweed, how you enhance and develop and improve your Quran recitation. In Arabic, if I say جودت هذا الشيء, it means I improved it, but it's not restricted to the Quran. That's a conventional usage, right? So back to the word sabab, literally means habl. Conventionally, it applies to anything, to any means that leads you to your end, to your goal. If you have a specific goal in mind, any means you would use to reach that goal in Arabic is called sabab. Okay? And that's in this context how the Quran uses the term فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in this passage that ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ آتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. We have given him, you may identify it as means. Actually, that's how many Quran translators which translate it as such. And it does make sense to be translated in this context as a means to something. So Abdullah ibn Abbas and many companions said what was given to Dhul Qarnayn is simply knowledge. The power that he was given is knowledge. He was given so many different types of knowledge that ended up with this power. And that's what knowledge does simply. Knowledge, as Francis Bacon put it this way, knowledge is power. That's a good translation of it, actually. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. This can be translated, if you look at the translations you may have, can you open the one that you have? Maybe Abdul Halim or whatever translation you may have. What do they say? Perhaps something along the lines of he moved on, he traveled. It could be the case, that's a plausible translation, plausible interpretation. But a better translation is simply to widen, we are meant to widen the meanings of the Quran as much as we can. Of course, if the text takes it. If Allah tells us that it's fine, that Dhul Qarnayn was given asbab, we need to ask what those asbab are. آتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. When it comes, the way we think of Dhul Qarnayn, we think often that he was given a lot of resources. Allah had given him wealth, money. We often think of material things, which is not literally the way the Quran introduces the figure of Dhul Qarnayn. Because if he was given everything, the Quran wouldn't have said فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. As in, he followed this up with other things. And that leads us to differentiate between two things. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides people. Normally Allah doesn't provide people with material stuff as such. Yes, the basic stuff Allah would share among us, provide humans with, that's something that's guaranteed. But beyond that, how do you become powerful? Allah does not give this power unconditionally. When Allah provides people, He provides people with potentials. It's skills. When we think of potentials, we think of soft stuff, soft skills. The first skill amongst those skills is literally knowledge. Look what was given, knowledge. You may also, as we advance in the text, you will get to know that one of his key soft skills, languages, the knowledge of languages. You may identify this as communication. Communication skills. So the verse says, لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. When they came upon some people who you can't communicate with them. He did communicate with them. So we talked about him having knowledge, him having that knowledge of languages, communication skills. So the potentials that he was given, when the Quran says, فَأَتْبَعَ, so we've given him potentials, we've given him skills. What did he do with those skills? فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. You may identify this itba' as activation. So he activated those skills. When someone follows something, when someone pursues something, you have a hidden, the vast majority of humans would have hidden skills. You know, we call this like your own call. It's my call. I was born to be, I don't know, a doctor, a professor, engineer, whatever. You know that you have specific passions. How did you come up with this passion? It's instilled in you. How do I activate this? How do I get this out of me, like to become actualized? And they call that an actualization as well. How do I make use of those potentials? فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. So Dhul Qarnayn is someone, that's a key statement, that's a key verse in the whole story. And that's why the word sabab is repeated a couple of times in the story to say this was one of the key things about Dhul Qarnayn. He could have remained ignorant of the skills that Allah has given him. And this is the situation with so many of us. You are given so many skills, but because you don't search, you don't investigate, you don't pursue that, what happens is you remain ignorant even of yourself, even of your own capacities. So what Dhul Qarnayn does, again, he moves those potentials into the area of the realm of actuality, in terms of the realm of activation. He activated those soft skills. Does this make sense? He traveled to the west, traveled to the east. That's what the Quran says. And again, every time the Quran speaks about that, the Quran emphasizes the idea of sabab. And Islamically, we have the notion of al-akhdhu bil-asbab. Using the means or taking the means, activating the means, can be translated in so many ways. As a very important thing, Allah has guaranteed us rizq. But as Umar radiallahu anhu said, "Inna as-samaa'a la tumtiru dhahaban wa la fidda." The sky does not rain or does not shower us with gold and silver, but you need to do the work. This is exactly what Dhul Qarnayn is doing. Allah has provided him with potentials. آتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He moves those potentials into actual stuff, actual realities. And the Quran details how this happens. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ. The usage of the preposition حَتَّى, it indicates that the man is engaged in this life. And it literally means until he reached حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَغْرِبَ الشَّمْسِ. Until he reached the place where the sun sets. وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما. He realized, he saw that the sun, the place where the sun sets, assuming it's the west side of the world, وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة. حمأ something means something black, something muddy. عين حمئة. حمئة is muddy or black. عين, what does عين mean? عين could mean, yes?
I
Well done, yeah, man, mashallah. How did you know that?
was of learned
Oh,
Arabic.
wow, well done, mashallah. We have another phenomenon in Arabic that is known as al-mushtarak. When a word has, one word has several meanings. Ayn, keep those words in mind. We have the word naql. Don't forget this. We also have the word mushtarak, al-mushtarak al-lafzi. So ayn, as Yaman said, primarily means eye, but it also has other meanings. What else? What else could it mean?
River?
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 River.
River, lake kind of thing? Pond?
That's very close. It's maybe a stream of water. A stream is probably more of a spring or a fountain. But yes, to do with water, yes. So maybe a spring. That was a very common usage of the term ayn back in those days. Ayn ma'in, a well. Okay? What else?
Spy.
Spy, indeed. A spy is also called ayn in Arabic. What else?
Center, maybe?
Center.
The center of something is.
Maybe the essence of something. The essence of something. You see, عين أصبت عين الحقيقة. You really tackle the essence of it. What else?
عين القوم وعين هذا an important person in the
Good.
clan.
Good. Like a head, a chief of the people, head of a tribe or something. What else?
Well, just for the عين الحقيقة, could it not be more زي تشبيه؟ إنه الحقيقة عندها عين يعني.
That's a different discussion. What is, out of all those, which one is the literal meaning and which one is the metaphorical one?
Oh,
That's a huge debate.
Okay.
That's a good question. We also have any other thoughts here, man? You run out of words? Okay, عيون الشعر. When we say عيون الشعر, what does that mean?
The best.
The best of. Best of something. What else? Any other thoughts? Just one word could mean all this. وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة. There is a metaphor. Think if you are standing at the beach, and at the beach you attend the time when the sun sets.
look
If you look at the sun, how does it look like?
Dark orange.
Huh?
Dark orange.
Dark indeed. And it looks like as if it is drowning in a well, like it's a عين حمئة. Because if you talk about an ocean or a large sea or something, you see the sun is very small, darkish in color, And it looks like it's literally drowning in a well. وجدها تغوص يعني. So apparently he arrived at a place where it was very close to the beach, probably. وجد عندها قوم. And he found the people there. قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. Apparently, of course, there is something the Quran summarizes simply. Apparently, those people were evildoers. That's why Dhul Qarnayn is being asked this question: What are you going to do with those people? إما أن تعذب, they are worthy of punishment. But are you going to do that? إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. Either you punish them for what they are doing, or that you forgive them. He says, I'm not going to generalize. I'm not collectivizing. أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه. That's him establishing justice as a powerful leader. That's another lesson that Dhul Qarnayn is teaching us. Establishing justice, and that by definition means you don't generalize. قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه. As for the wrongdoers or the evildoers, I will discipline them, and they will have another punishment from Allah, a severer one. وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا. As for the good doers and the believing ones, فله جزاء الحسنى. They will be greatly rewarded from Allah. وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا. From our side, it will be good to them. He does that. We don't know for how many years he stayed with them. Allahu A'lam. Again, the Quran is after lessons that we can learn. ثم أتبع سببا. We just you have him going back to the potentials and him pursuing those means. أتبع سببا, to the other side. حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس. He reached the point where the sun rises. وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا. And he came upon a people who literally he came across a people who lived in a place that was had an immediate or direct relation to the sun, as in they lived in a very hot place, part of the world. لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا. It could literally mean that they are immediately under the sun, directly. You know, in pre-modern societies, they believe in something that was known as the تقسيم السباعي للعالم, the sevenfold division of the world. Like, as in, think of this خط الاستواء, 7777. The vast majority of people would live here, because those areas are very, very hot. The southern parts are very hot, the northern parts are very cold. So most of the people would live in that place. You know, الإقليم الثالث والرابع. As a good place to live in its relation to the sun. Yeah. So those people were directly under the sun, immediately under the sun. لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا could mean that. It could also mean that they didn't have any clothes on them. Perhaps sitr could also refer to cloth. كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. This literally is saying, so it was. Apparently, it could be understood in the way we understood the first one, as in he came upon a people who were mixed. Some of them did good, others did evil. He was asked what to do with those people. He did not generalize. as if the Quran is telling us that he did the same thing to them. وَقَدْ أَحَطْنَا بِمَا لَدَيْهِ خُبْرًا. As if the Quran is saying, we have been told what he did already. That's what he did. He did to those people what he did to the ones that he met earlier. Okay? And I really want to pause here for a bit before we continue. So we had the concept of al-naql. What else do we have linguistically? Al-mushtarak. Do we have any other words? So now we have the example of sabab. Al-mushtarak, we have the example of ayn. And we had a discussion on the nature of the things that Dhul Qarnayn was given. I said he was not given actual stuff, as in wealth and resources, but he was resourceful. At some point I was talking about this, that having resources versus being resourceful. Having resources is someone who has a lot of positions. Being resourceful is primarily about having soft skills. Right? Resourceful is someone who has internal capacities. Resources is primarily external stuff. He owns this, he owns that. Dhul Qarnayn was more resourceful than being a man who has resources as such. Again, as we said before, he did not pause at that. He actually pursued, he followed, he actualized the soft skills. He used those soft skills that were given. And that speaks to one of the key issues that we have as Muslims today, is our lack of the philosophy that Dhul Qarnayn had. How do I move again from how do I make use of that asbab that Allah has given me? How do I actualize those? When you think of the Muslim world today, think even the richest Muslim countries. Are they resourceful?
Yes.
Or do they have resources? Right? Many of those countries, they have a lot of resources. What they need, what we need to work on is literally working on the people, on turning people into resourceful people. People who have skills, soft skills. We've seen that through the example of Dhul Qarnayn himself. The first soft skill he had is knowledge. We'll get to know how he expresses this himself. Communication, languages. These are not positions. These are internal capacities. Again, it's a hugely lacked thing today in our culture as Muslims. You can't escape the fact that the Quran is repeatedly emphasizing the idea of sabab in this context. Sababa, sababa, sababa. Why? Not for a good reason. It wants to instill something into our minds. And if you read this in the light of the four stories, I said we had a link when we had a holistic tafsir. We said that there is a link between the four stories through the idea of fitna, but you can also read something else into those four stories. We have the first story, what was it?
كيف؟
بعدين نزول كيف. The second صاحب الجنتين. The third and the fourth is the Qarn. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of those people? Think of a positive thing, and I mean it's all positive actually. What is the first thing that you associate them with? Let me help you.
فتية.
Fitya. I will use the exact term, futuwa or fitya. We had this discussion on futuwa before. You remember this? Yes. What else? Faith. The first thing the Quran introduces them with, fityatun amanu bi rabbihim. They had faith. That's actually probably the strongest thing in terms of the heart stuff. Faith. إنهم fityatun amanu bi rabbihim. But also, they were in a very weak position. Being persecuted. Okay? The man of the two gardens, the two guys, our minds, when we think of them, I probably would think of arrogance. The other one is, to me, is more linked with modesty, God mindfulness. Maybe this guy is more ego-based, ego-centered, and this man is God-centered, so to speak. Okay? With Musa and Al-Khadr, we're talking about knowledge in the first place. The word sabab is probably the most repeated in the story of the Qarnayn. There's an equal word to it in the story of Moses and Al-Khadr. Which was it? Which one was it? Sabr. Patience. With the Qarnayn, but also here we have a question in mind, that is Moses' mind. With the Qarnayn, we have power. We have someone who's going by the asbab. We have someone who is establishing justice. But there's a journey as well. A journey from this to that. A journey from a position of weakness, a position of persecution, to a position of power, going by the means, establishing justice on earth. And in the middle, you have certain ethical principles you go by, certain ethical diseases you are meant to avoid. You have means that you need to have, knowledge, patience, question in mind, asbab that you need to actualize and activate. As if Surah Al-Kahf is telling us the story of the rise and fall of civilizations, the rise and fall of philosophies, the rise and fall of nations, just ones. Wherever you may be in that journey. Know what your position is. Act in the way everyone was acting. If you are in a position of weakness, position of persecution, you could act in this way, in the way the people of the cave responded. If you are in a position, the position of those two people, be with this side, the side of modesty, the side of being God-centered, not in the side of arrogance and ego-centerism. If you are in an arena of knowledge and this and that, follow Moses in terms of his commitment and his consistency. Be aware of the problems that may come across: fatigue, forgetfulness. If after all this you were in this stage, you need to keep following the means, actualizing the means, activating the means, establishing justice. That's the test that every single one of us is having. Every single one of us is in a specific phase of those phases. Allah is telling us this is how the Qarnayn acted when he was in that position. And these are as if these are also the conditions that would lead us, when you think of one of the key purposes behind our creation, is actually being actualized by the Qarnayn. That is, هو أنشأكم من الأرض واستعمركم فيها. عمارة الأرض. Allah has produced you, has created you out of the land, out of dust. واستعمركم فيها, and He asks you to civilize. You have been, placed on earth and you've been asked to civilize this earth. Out of everyone, this is what everyone should be actually aiming for. That you become in a place where you can civilize. Civilizing people, civilizing places, civilizing. That's what the Qarnayn is doing. That's the highest aim that one should aim for. And sometimes this idea of civilization, when Allah uses someone by way of as an instrument of civilizing others, it can happen through one single person. The Quran tells us it can happen with individuals, like Dhul Qarnayn. إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. We empowered him individually. Same thing with Yusuf alayhi salam. But Allah also empowers entire nations. Think of Surah An-Nur, where it says, وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وَلَيُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمُ الَّذِي ارْتَضَىٰ لَهُمْ وَلَيُبَدِّلَنَّهُم مِّن بَعْدِ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا. That's at certain points when Allah sees in people good foundations to have this role of civilization. After they achieve all this, that's a blessing for the earth. When they have the right people taking the lead. Because when you don't have those people, you end up where we have right now in this world. On the verge of World War III. Mainly because we don't have enough people fulfilling those conditions. So that we can have people like Al-Kahf, who are bothered about justice, going by the means, and power is lying with the right people. So Al-Kahf is so important for a good reason. It narrates the journey of all of us. So, a link that we may draw between those 4 stories is a journey from this to that. And this should be, again, the higher objective. As it fulfills one of the key purposes of our creation. أنشأكم من الأرض, one more time, واستعمركم فيها. He wants you to civilize this as much as you can. As much as you can. But again, it's not an easy thing. It takes this journey toward faith. If you are in a position of weakness and persecution, what you do, people of the cave told us. You need to have modesty, being God-centered, not ego-centered, not arrogant, increase in knowledge, question in mind, sense of patience, never giving up. The Quran teaches us again, going by the asbab, actualizing, activating the hidden gems that Allah has given us, that many of us are not even aware of what they have. Is that clear? حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. He moved on until he came across. Again, the Quran is not very clear on what this means, but it's the idea behind, the principle behind it. بلغ بين السدين وجد, until he reached like the sides of two mountains. وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. In between those two mountains, he came across a people لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. Okay, that's interesting. Let me wipe this out first. لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. In Arabic, we have this word يكاد, and we can also say لا يكاد. What does يكاد mean? Almost. Indeed, barely, on the verge of. In Arabic, if you ever have this particle of negation, لا, before يكاد, it means this is a positive word. If you don't have this la, like this one, it means this is a negative word, which is actually the opposite of what people think. As in, la is a particle of negation. If you ever have it before yakad, it literally means this word is a positive word. This sentence is a positive word. If you don't have it, it means the word that is being used here is negative. Let me give you an example in English. Actually, we have the sentence here. لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. How would you translate this? What do you understand from this verse? لا يكادون يفقهون قولا.
Without what you said or with what you said?
Either way.
Without what you said, I would think that they cannot speak.
They cannot speak. Wonderful. Linguistically, it actually means they can barely speak. لا يكادون يعني لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. If I say لا يكاد, it means this person speaks, but barely speaks. It's very, very difficult to understand that. Does that make sense?
So what's the difference between, again, if I say يكادون لا يفقهون?
Okay, كاد, if I say كاد أحمد أن يصل. Who can translate this one?
He almost reached.
He almost reached.
Ahmad almost reached.
Ahmad almost reached. Does this mean he reached?
No.
I haven't used that. So it means the action did not happen.
It wasn't completed.
It wasn't completed. If I said لا يكاد أحمد يتكلم أن يتكلم مثلا. What does that mean? Probably would have been he barely, exactly, that's true, doesn't apply here. He barely speaks.
So right? He can speak, but he doesn't.
It's a sign of wisdom.
So he can speak, but he doesn't speak.
He does not speak.
With the other one, he can't speak.
He can't speak.
Okay.
But of course, what is meant with the people, with those people, لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. Very difficult to understand. Very difficult. لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. In Hamza's reading, and Ksa is reading. It actually says لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. As in, they do speak, but you can't understand them. While the first reading literally says, you speak to them, but they don't understand. Either way, there's a communication problem. Who intervenes and sorts this out? Who? Al-Qarnayn. Again, going back to the soft skills, languages. They could realize there's a problem, need someone to sort this. It could be both ways. They don't understand them, and when they speak, they don't really express themselves properly. But the Qarnayn does the job. And that confirms what we started with, the blessings that the Quran was given. We're talking about primarily soft ones. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. They said, oh, the Qarnayn, those people, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, I'm not going to get into this. We know very little about this, those people. But the mysteries that we have about them in the Muslim imagination is just unbelievable. And the Quran mentions them once or twice. And we have books that have been written on this. We barely have any sort of authentic stuff on them. إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. Ya'juj and Ma'juj are literally a cause of corruption on this place, on this part of the world. فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا? Shall we offer you money? Kharj means money. على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. Provided that you really build some sort of a barrier between us and them. What does he say? قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير. What does that mean? قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير. What does that mean? What I have is better than what you are offering. Does this make any sense? I mean, within this context, yes, it is often translated as such. Why would he say that? Think of this in the light of Surah Al-Adiyat. وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. What does al-khayr mean here? Al-mal. It's money. وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. So the Quran often uses al-khayr to mean money. He says, قَالَ مَا مَكَّنِّي فِيهِ رَبِّي خَيْرٌ فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما. Okay, what does? Okay, let's wait on this one. قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير. It could be understood in the way you said, yeah, as in what Allah has given me is far better. But why does He say that? How does that link to what we were just talking about? As if He is saying, I am not really interested in resources. What I have been given is more the soft skills that we began with. As in, having a resourceful person is much better than having someone who has resources but don't know how to use them. That's why he asks, فَأَعِنُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ. What I'm looking for is another skill. It's not the money that I'm looking for. فَأَعِنُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ. Lend me your strength. أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَجُلًا. If you give me this, I can, with your help, and that way he's actually teaching them independence as well. He wants them to get involved, not through money, but through action. فَأَعِنُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ. That Chinese proverb, don't give me a fish, but teach me how to fish. I think he was teaching them how to fish. فَأَعِنُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ. Lend me your strength. أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ. I have the skills. أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ. I will teach you how to build a dam, a barrier, whatever, between you and those people. And he teaches them how to do that. But they are now involved. And then now when you think of civilizations, take this to the bigger picture. Civilizations are not built, on people who have resources, but rather on resourceful people. He teaches them how to make use of those resources. He says, "Atuni zubar al-hadid." They get involved. He says, "Give me pieces of iron." And that says something, when we study geography, there is the Stone Age, but there's also the Iron Age. That led some scholars to say that probably he lived in that age. The Iron Age was like, 11 or 1200 years before Christ, Jesus Christ. The Iron Age, BC. Prior to that, people didn't really appreciate iron. After that, iron became, in today's world, iron is a big thing. But there was a time when people didn't really know what it is. How can music, there were other elements that were much more valuable. Until he filled the gap between those two mountains. He asked him to blow حتى يرجع له نار. I don't know, to blow as in blow, set a fire. قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرة. He asked him to get smelted iron, smelted metal, brass, and he put it on this barrier, so that it gets to solidify the barrier. And then after that, he says, فَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا أَنْ يَظْهَرُوهُ وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقْبًا. After he established this, established this barrier, they could not climb that dam or that barrier. وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقْبًا. And they could not even, create any holes into it. And here we can discuss the difference between ista'a wa istata'a. Ista'a, istata'a. It's really difficult to do this in the translation. Ista'a, they both to do with the idea of ability. Like the verse says, فَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا أَنْ يَظْهَرُوهُ. They couldn't climb that mountain, that barrier, nor could they make a hole into it. Nothing. But the Quran uses in the first one ista'a without a ta, and in the second one uses istata'a. They both mean the same thing. Someone is capable, or is able of doing something. So they couldn't climb that barrier, nor could they piece it or create a hole in it. Why does the Quran use, says ista'a in the first and istata'a in the second? Any guesses? Okay. If you have a barrier, think of a very high dam that is very well built with iron and brass and this and that. Which is easier for you, to climb that or to make a hole in it?
Make a hole.
You have different capacity. What is definitely easier is to climb. To make a hole into something that has been made with, been cemented with iron and brass and this and that, is much more difficult. You can always come up with ways with which you can climb them. Think of ladders. You will always be able to come up with things that may help you, no matter how high it is. Because the fact that he managed to build it, to make it as high as possible, that means people can reach that height. But what you can't do is to make a hole into something that what's even more difficult is to make a hole. How is that relevant? In Arabic, there is a rule that says الزيادة في المبنى زيادة في المعنى. الزيادة في المبنى زيادة في المعنى. This word, how many letters does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one?
6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even though they both mean one thing, that is ability, استطاع, there is more ability in استطاع. There is less ability in استطاع. The more letters you have in a word, the more meaning it carries. The more letters you have in a word, think of the more meaning, the deeper the meaning is, the broader the meaning is. Think of the word nahj. Think of the word manhaj. Think of the word minhaj. They all to do with the same idea. Having a method, a way of doing something. Or you have this 3 letters, 4 letters, 5 letters. Definitely, this is the deepest one. Definitely, this is the broadest one. That's why the Quran says, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. To each of you assigned a very specific and a very well-defined track. Even though they all share in the idea of having a method and a track. Go back to the story of Musa and Al-Khadr. Before Musa explains to, before Al-Khadr explains to Moses the 3 cases that he had, what does he say? قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك سأنبئك بتأويله ما لم تستطع. After he explained to him, what does he say? تستطع. هذا, what's the word? What does the verse say? The last one.
تستطيع.
ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه. After he explained, now it became much more easier to Moses' mind. Before the explanation, it was very difficult. You can't bear it. تستطيع. الزيادة في المبنى زيادة في المعنى. It's deeper, it's stronger, it's more in terms of quantity as well as in quality. Does this make sense? فما استطاعوا أن يظهرون وما استطاعوا له نقبا. قال هذا رحمة من ربي. This is a sign of mercy that has come to me from Allah, my Lord. فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكا. When the day of judgment comes by, this dam, this barrier will be destroyed. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. This day will definitely come. Allah's promise will always be fulfilled. The Prophet ﷺ in Sahih Bukhari, Zainab radiallahu anha, she says, استيقظ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Prophet woke up in the middle of the night, فزعا, so scared. And he says, أيقظوا صباح بات الحجر, wake everyone up. It's a very serious moment. And he was asked, what is happening? He says, فتح اليوم من ردم يأجوج ومأجوج مثل هذه. That there is a very little, and then he indicated with his fingers. A very tiny space has been opened in that dam, in that barrier. وحلق بإصبعه. It's like that. What he means is that he's referring to this verse. It means that the day of judgment is approaching. Because the Quran says, فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكَّا. When the day of judgment comes by, it will be completely destroyed. And all starts with little instructions like these. Dhul Qarnayn says, هذا رحمة من ربي. The fact that Allah has empowered me with all this is a mercy for all the people. Again, going back to the same idea, when you have the right people being powerful, it's a mercy for all people. When you have the wrong people in power, it's a hell for people. And there is nothing that explains this more than what the whole world is going through now. What is that? I have 1 hour, am I right?
Yeah.
1 hour, 5 minutes.
So it's 65 seconds. That's pretty much all I wanted to share with you today. Shall we continue next week? The last passage is Surah Al-Kahf. But if you have any questions or comments or reflections, I'm all ears. Silence. William, any thoughts? Yes,
Can
yeah.
I just ask about the second part after from when he passes قال من ضل فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. And then people after that, what did he say that was exactly?
I mean,
and he finished the first people.
He came across a people of the same nature.
Sure.
Wrongdoers, evildoers, and he dealt with them in the very same way he dealt with the first people.
So is there a reason this is repeated twice, sort of thing? Or is it just sort of show continuous justice kind of?
No, it shows because the first people he met was at the place where the sun sets. The second one was where the place where the sun rises. So it's two different people.
So
the Quran is not repeating anything. The Quran is saying, instead of me repeating the same stuff that I said earlier, I'm telling you, it's, in English we say ditto, or the same thing applies.
Okay, sure.
So about Allah وكذلك وقد أحطنا بما ذي خبر, you think means that? I mean, that's what it means. No, what happened?
Yes, I think so.
Because
of course, it can be
never made sense to me because I don't know what to make out of it.
Of course, it can. Of course, I know the common way of understanding it that says we were fully aware of what he was doing, right?
Yes, but then of course.
Exactly. We already know this. But you see, normally when the Quran uses this proposition, كذلك, expect some sort of a relationship to the previous narrative. It means similarly, in the same way. A norm across the Quran. And the Quran gets us somehow involved into the conversation, but we have already been told what he's done in the first example. Wallahu a'lam. There is a space for the other interpretation, definitely. That's one of the rich aspects of the Quran. But I don't see as much sense in this compared to the one I just said. Wallahu a'lam. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Ma'ud, please.
Does heaven mean rope or?
Huh?
Does heaven mean rope or?
Oh, thank you. You should have corrected me, guys. Thank you. So I wrote rope. As in, stupid. It is rope. Please, guys, you need to clap for Ryan. Very, very well done. Very well done. So it's rope, indeed. Yes.
When the Quran says, وَأَتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا, I always read this, كُلِّ شَيْء. And it's massive. How can you كل شيء سببا, does it mean he's been given everything? It's in everything. Or does it mean out of the knowledge he's been given the full knowledge of the bits he's been given?
That's a great question. وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا. The Quran says the same thing about Sulaiman alayhi salam. He says, وأوتينا من كل شيء, when he encountered, when he saw the kingdom of the ants, sorry. It says, وأوتينا من كل شيء, we've been given something of everything. The same thing with, he gets to say the same thing by the end of the story. The same thing gets repeated in Surah Al-Kahf. تدمر كل شيء بأمر ربها. The wind that destroyed the people of Ad alayhi salam, the Quran says about this wind, it destroyed everything with Allah's permission, with Allah's leave. And then right in the same verse it says, فَأَصْبَحُوا لَا يُرَى إِلَّا مَسَاكِنُهُم. But you see nothing but the houses. Even though the verse literally says it has destroyed, the wind has destroyed everything. Right? This is simply to say that the Quran, when it uses those expressions, it means those people have been given so much. And that this wind has destroyed so much. And Allah has left us those houses by way of telling us that there were people who lived there. With Sulaiman, it means he has been given so much. With Dhul-Qarnayn, it means he was given so much. But it does not literally mean he was given everything as such. That question led Imam As-Subki to write a book on this. The book is called أحكام كل وما عليه تدل. Ryan, do you know this book? You know this book? Come on. كتاب أحكام كل وما عليه تدل. He could realize that the Quran uses this word كل differently in different contexts than that. In this book he discusses those areas. It means this and that in that context, it means that in another context, and this and that. So in this place, they know in كل شيء, and we build so much in terms of knowledge. And when we said sabab in this context, it means literally he was given so much knowledge. As again, think of the soft skills, communication skills, languages. He could communicate. Much of what he says, much of what he had. I mean, for someone to move from the east to the west, you can't imagine a person moving with so many positions with this. He has, his own capacities is what goes with him. He had people working with him definitely, but it is the internal stuff that he had, the internal skills, rather than positions as such, externalities. Yeah. If that makes sense. And that also, maybe you can, this verse can be understood in so many ways as well. You can understand in this as if the verse is saying, if you have been given, he was given a holistic knowledge. One of the key problems that we have in today's knowledge, because of the sense of the deep sense of specialization. We do have people who are too specialized in specific fields that we have no idea what it looks like in other fields. Back in those days, people would have a much more systematic way of doing knowledge in general. So they would begin with what is known as arts. Yeah. And you move after arts, you move to do physics. By physics, arts, by By arts, they mean stuff like logic, geometrics, mathematics, and those areas. You move into physics after that, and then metaphysics. With metaphysics, you study philosophy, you study theology, and those non-material stuff. You end up after those with a holistic understanding of things. And that actually confirms that this, Allahu Alam, this man was probably Alexander the Great, in the sense he was, I mean, history tells us that he was the immediate student of whom? Aristotle. Who was Aristotle? A great Greek philosopher. At some point in history, he would be called the philosopher, as in, is the complete example of how a philosopher should be, and his knowledge was just unbelievable. He was the immediate student of Aristotle. His contribution to knowledge in terms of that structure, arts, plus physics, and then metaphysics, gives you a holistic understanding of the world. You can bring this into the verse as well. And then he was given a holistic knowledge. In today's world, you have people who specialize in logic, specialize in, I don't know, in geometrics, but they have no idea what physics is like, let alone metaphysics. So we have become so fragmented. So the fragmentation of knowledge. When knowledge is fragmented, you end up with people who lack visions. This man had a vision because he had a holistic view. So I had access to so many things. Thank you for raising this question. So, I mean, actually, you may cancel this interpretation. I'm happy to go with the second interpretation. Both can be both ways.
It's been used many times on even on كل شيء
No, indeed. Sure, but sometimes the Quran uses it literally, as in وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ مثلا. Allah has power over literally everything.
But that's literally. Yeah,
literally.
That's true.
Yeah, let's leave it at that. Just because we have some good kids here. We don't want to start the mics. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can the two interpretations go hand in hand? Because
yeah, sure.
He has the holistic understanding from each subject.
Right. Absolutely.
And
sure.
Not everything from every subject.
They are not mutually exclusive at all. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Maybe it's a minor question, but since we're talking about language, is there like a difference between فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا and ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا? Is there some reason why it's used that way?
I'm not sure the translator says ثُمَّ means then. In Arabic, yes, it means then, but it also means it didn't happen immediately after the previous thing. That was a good gap in terms of years.
Okay.
If I say رأيت أيهم ثم أحمد, means that there was maybe good days apart, hours, but it does not mean at all that I've seen them both together.
Okay.
If I want to say I've seen them together, I would say رأيت أيهم أو أحمد.
Okay.
Both together are used well. If I say رأيت أيهم فأحمد, it means I have seen Ahmad right after Ayham. If I say رأيت أيهم ثم أحمد, it means there was a good gap of 4 hours, 5 hours, days maybe. So ثم means there was a good gap.
So for أتباع at the start is a small gap between them, and
yes.
then ثم is a longer gap.
Indeed. Thank you for another great question. Any other thoughts? No question. Was I have to take this time? Bro, that's ridiculous. And no one said anything. We don't need to say anything to him, but this was his own making it. Wallah. Wow. Thank you. Allah yafadar. Inshallah, we stop here. So we meet up next week with the last passage of Surah. Okay.
مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما